Hello, and welcome to this Automation World webinar on mitigating cyber risks in operations technology. I'm David Greenfield, Director of Content for Automation World, and I'll be moderating this webinar. Now, we all know that operations technology is becoming smarter and more efficient as it becomes more connected. But with this connection of operations technology and IT systems, cybersecurity risks also increase. So in this webinar, Carolyn Swan with Advantech and Lewis Parks with Veridify Security will discuss the evolving cyber threat landscape, the security implications of operations technology and IT convergence, what the elements of a zero trust security framework are, and they'll explain how the Intel-based DOME technology provides real-time protection and device-level cybersecurity. Now, at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session, so feel free to enter your questions for the presenters at any point during the webinar. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Carolyn.
Great, thank you so much, David. And we're so grateful that y'all all joined us today. I lead our strategic partnerships here at Advantech and work closely with global partners like Intel and Veridify Security. A little bit more about Advantech. We are an Intel Titanium IoT solutions provider partner. We are a global industrial technology solutions provider, really focusing in on the edge compute, embedded systems, IoT gateways, and so much more. Our specialty is in the intelligent connectivity at the edge of networks. As the world's largest industrial compute manufacturer, we have over 1,500 standard product offerings with the ability to customize those solutions to meet your IoT needs. Again, we're so grateful you joined us today, and I'll hand it off to my teammate Lewis with Veridify.
Thank you, Carolyn. Great to be here today and here both as a Intel and an Advantech partner. For those of you who may not have met us yet, we're a security technology company focused on protecting devices at the edge of a network, and we'll discuss that a little more in today's presentation. We work with current and future-proof tools and provide software development kits, or SDKs, to our partners for inclusion on their products. And today we'll be focusing on the product DOME that we've developed in partnership with Advantech and Intel to address cybersecurity in the OT network, OT space. We're a recognized industry innovator with several certifications and awards as indicated below. Many of you have come here today because you're aware that cybersecurity and attacks, particularly in the industrial space, is a growing concern. Certainly, a slide like this can be updated almost weekly, indicating that not only are there attacks happening, but coming with costs, both operationally and financially. We think that the challenges in the OT cybersecurity space are somewhat unique, and many of you may have strong backgrounds in cybersecurity in the IT world, but we believe that there are challenges in the OT network that are quite unique that need to be addressed that we'll be discussing a little bit further in today's operation. For example, a lot of the OT world deals in legacy infrastructure. Many of the systems that we look to protect, both in the industrial world and in things like building automations, may have been installed years or even decades ago. Certainly, none of you are watching this on a 30-year-old PC, but it would not be unusual to find a device like that in an OT network in one of the legacy systems. Proprietary systems are also an issue when it comes to securing OT networks. Many of the systems and solutions delivered today, again, both in the industrial space and building space, are unique in the proprietary or the protocols that are delivered on. And that is one of the issues with the many protocols, whether you're familiar with Modbus, Profibus, field buses of buildings like BACnet, and then unique vendor applications that may come up too. Another issue in the OT world that you do not always see in the IT world is the devices you're looking to protect might be critical, but may have no screen or no actual UI. So you can't key in a two-factor authentication or click on a field These devices may be working independently at the edge of a network with no actual interface. These devices, by the way, are typically engineered and designed very specifically for their functions. So unlike many of the devices and platforms you may be watching this on today that have extra RAM, extra storage, etc., for whatever you may do in the future, these devices do not have that type of resource to enable you to implement many of the security technologies that we take for granted in the IT world. The system and device location is another issue. In the IT world, many systems are designed to protect systems that are installed or physically accessible. So where you might use something like network segmentation to protect an area that may be under attack and then go and have your IT staff deal with it, in the OT world, you may have a device under attack in Chicago and you're looking at it on a dashboard in New York. Again, a unique challenge in the OT world. And finally, a general challenge I think we all face listening to the webinar today is the siloed nature of the OT and the IT world. And that is, in many cases, we meet facilities and industrial engineers responsible for the operations of a system and to keep it safe. And at the same time, there may be an IT staff or there may be no IT staff, and they do not necessarily see it as their mandate or their purview to protect the HVAC system, the access controls, or even the PLCs in a manufacturing facility. So again, an additional challenge that with our partner Advantech, we've looked to try to address in a solution today. So one of the questions is, if we all know about these challenges and we're all aware of it, I may not have told anybody anything new yet, why are these so vulnerable still? Or what has made this such an issue today? And I think one of the reasons is easily seen, and for most of us, and again, we needed to consider this in coming up with a solution, and that is that operational technologies have existed for decades, as has IT. Only for operational purposes, in recent years, have these two technologies been connected to drive efficiencies and controls in places not previously assumed. However, with those efficiencies, what we've done is increased the attack surface, the places where a hacker, a nation state, or a bad person can go to create a security threat. And again, I think what's pointed out here, not so subtly, in the IT world, a threat could be ransomware, a potential financial loss. But in the OT world, it can be so much bigger, where we're talking about the safety and function of an operation, an industrial plant, or a building. Again, many of us know and think about the IT world, and when we say cybersecurity and cybersecurity tools, there are a lot of them, and that is a very, very good thing. However, we see the majority of those tools coming from the IT world where they're very, very mature. This is not a bad thing, but I think it's important for this audience to recognize that that may be limiting the capabilities of the system that you're using today. And in a few slides, we will talk about how we've looked to address that. What I mean is, many of the cybersecurity solutions today, now coming in even to the OT world, are network-based and talk about asset visibility. Certainly, if you're a CISO or the VP of IT networks, you're concerned if somebody comes from home and plugs a device into your network. That is a bad thing. I'm not sure many building managers or plant managers are worried about you bringing a PLC from home or a thermostat and plugging into the network. But again, a very valid concern in the IT world and why you want to have visibility. Patch and update. Patches and updates are a frequent, weekly, sometimes daily event in some systems, almost unheard of in many OT networks. Devices go up and they're there for years or decades. Again, a concept coming from the IT world that may or may not be applicable to what you manage. Network segmentation. This is the typical protect part of a cybersecurity solution today, which really focuses on monitoring and alerts, looking for anomalies on your network, and then alerting to you that there's an issue in your network someplace. How do you protect yourself? Many of these systems provide network segmentation or even micro-segmentation as a way to isolate the area. That works in the IT world, but in the OT world, if that area is operating a critical part of a hospital, maybe you need to be aware of it, but you can't isolate that function from the rest of the network or disconnect them. Firewalls are important, again, and we can see those, and those have been used for decades, as has antivirus and monitoring. And finally, zero trust. Zero trust itself is a broad topic and maybe good for another webinar, but zero trust often is used in terms of access or network level zero trust, simply meaning or defined for today's discussion that even though you've gotten into my network or you've gotten into an area of my network before, I still don't trust you and will ask you to re-authenticate or verify yourself each area, each place you go. That is really, really important, but may not cut it at the device level that's receiving individual packets with instructions or giving up critical data. So in the end, this is all good. None of this is a condemnation or a critique. If you have these systems, they're good, you should use them, but they're IT network focused. And so now what I'd like to do is turn to the topic today, which is DOM, and how with our partner Advantech, we've looked to address and complement some of the security solutions you're doing today with what we uniquely bring to the platform. DOM by Veridify is a device-level security solution. We've designed it to stop cyber attacks when they happen, not just to report on them on OT networks and critical infrastructure. And again, what I mean by that in this simple diagram is there are many good solutions out there for monitoring, alert, anomaly detection, etc., typically operating at the network level or above these devices. The solution we're going to discuss today is specifically designed and built to address each individual device at the very edge of a network. Just a quick high-level overview of DOM before we give you an example in an industrial space of how it looks. DOM is a fairly extensive system, very extensive in the cybersecurity sense. And that is, what we've done is we've created a root of trust in each individual device in the system protected by DOM. Today we'll be focusing on our retrofit solution shortly, where even if you don't have a device with DOM embedded, you can actually add it to your existing platform using our partner Advantech's technology and hardware today. We know that cybersecurity is a broad topic. IT resources are tight and short, so all of our technology has been developed with zero-touch onboarding, as we'll revisit again in a few minutes. You take a device, you take the Advantech platform, put it on a DIN rail, plug it in, power it up, and 40 seconds later, you're protecting your network and devices behind it. In some of the areas, you may have issues with supply chain. And again, because of how we manage the pedigree and root of trust of each device in our network, we give you a secure supply chain and an ownership model that ensures that it is an authentic device running on your network, in your plant, or your building. Again, as we mentioned earlier, patches, updates, etc. are taken for granted in the IT world. DOM gives you the ability to deliver securely. A firmware update can be trusted to a device in the field. And of course, one critical element we provide is mutual authentication. A DOM device installed in the field, or a DOM Sentry, as we're going to introduce in a few minutes, authenticates the network before it allows somebody to take control of it. And of course, the network or user can authenticate the device to ensure that this is a correct device for their installation. And finally, all data and commands are protected. We think this is a critical feature taken for granted in the IT world. None of us would put a credit card on the internet if it wasn't encrypted, and yet virtually no OT networks naturally are encrypted. They certainly are protected at the network level, but again, we think zero trust is important. So to review, device level protection at the edge is what we're talking about here, not network protection, but complementary. And that should be one of the very first takeaways. So a zero trust framework. In our particular case, we're saying that every data packet arriving to a device or to a DOM Sentry in our system is wrapped through a tunnel and encrypted. So no single device assumes that what it's receiving is okay, even if it just received an information or message from before. All the devices are mutually authenticated, so they can be trusted, and only trusted devices can communicate on the platform. We don't replace anything that exists in your current environment. Rather, much like a VPN, we set up a secure tunnel over your existing platform and allow the devices to communicate securely. Again, a concept taken for granted in the IT world that we bring to the OT world is an encryption of the data, commands, and logs, and everything traveling over your network. So again, our focus is device level protection, but I think it's important that we do provide real-time alerts to those who are responsible for managing or operating a system that we have stopped an attack. So again, if it's not authentic, we stop it and we report. And finally, what I'd like to turn to in terms of giving you an example of our solution today is that we've actually taken the technology and with our partners at Advantech, we have put it on a device. So we've put cybersecurity in a box so it can be retrofitted to your existing system without the need to replace it, as well as we can provide the software tools to embed in new devices too. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. In today's world, you may have a plant, building operation, or any other type of industrial network running where you have some sort of controller, perhaps talking to a cloud, automation system, what have you, and then talking to devices at the edge, sensors, PLCs, CCTVs, or an HVAC system in the case of a building. For those of you with an engineering background, you might recognize this screen. This is a shot of something called Wireshark. And all this is really showing you is that you can now see all of the data flowing over your OT network, as can anybody else who accesses your network. So that whether they want to collect information about the operation of your building, or whether they want to record a command and then replay it as a way to take down your systems, it's all doable in the world of OT. Let's see what happens now when we introduce Dome. Here is a simple architectural implementation of Dome. And what you'll see here is in the center of the screen, our device that we call a Dome interface or Dome interface appliance. There are one of these per installation. This is a very powerful Advantech platform that allows us to manage all of the communications with the cloud, and it credentials and onboards automatically any of our devices or a Dome-enabled device on the network. What we're showing you here is our device called a Dome Sentry, where we've taken all of our security technology, placed it in this individual Advantech standalone device that can be mounted on a DIN rail, ceiling, or roof, and immediately brings security to the devices already installed behind it. No need to replace your existing system. It basically creates a secure network over the existing network, the red lines you see here, and all communications are now tunneled and encrypted between your edge devices and controllers. And as you see at the top of the screen, we do provide dashboards and can integrate dashboards to existing systems so that you can monitor and see the status and activity on your network. So again, very, very uniquely, we've taken cybersecurity, strong mutual authentication, and we've connected it and packaged it in a box to be easily installed by a non-IT, non-cybersecurity person. By the way, now that it's installed, what does it look like? Here's another screenshot of Wireshark, and in this dialog box, we're now showing you what you or an attacker would see if they got access to your network. There's no information being given. All they see is the word security payload, but most importantly, down at the second arrow, all you're seeing is a signature wrapper and encrypted data. No usable information is divulged, whether it's a command or a critical data log from a device or your building. Carolyn, if you'd like to take through the solution and what we've done to date.
Thank you, Louis. Perfect. I would love to simplify what Louis just covered, because while cybersecurity can be very scary, it can be daunting, and it can be complex, what we've done with Veridify, with the Dome solution, based on the Intel platform and technology, is we've really made it easy. So the Dome solution stops cyber attacks before they can happen. It is not a monitoring solution. It actually stops the attack. With Dome installed, the shields are up and real-time active protection is in place the moment it's installed. It's a complete cybersecurity solution in a box. It's that simple, right? So when you receive the solution, you're able to unbox it for easy deployment, turn the Dome interface gateway on, install easily the Dome sentries. You don't need a cyber IT expert or resource in-house. You can deploy this operationally with extreme Intel technology helping protect your networks. And that protection is for the OT systems. It works with the new and existing OT devices that you have in your facility or your building. And that protection is between the devices to the edge, right? Everything that's operating out there. And it secures all IP-enabled automation devices. Lastly, and to reiterate, that immediate protection upon installation. And I will cover a few other details of what's in the box when you install this and when you receive it from Advantech and our partners. First off, we have the Dome dashboard. This is a very simple interface, easy to read. There are the analytics that come from the data being gathered at the edge, the security alerts that come in, right, as they are brought to your attention, and then that daily status email. So you can see when an attack tried to occur, how the solution stopped the attack, and it gives you that real-time notification as well. The dashboard is pulling from that Dome interface appliance. And this is the Intel Elkhart Lake CPU Edge Gateway, the Advantech Uno 2271. As Lewis mentioned, this is a very powerful fanless industrial computer with plenty of I/O built in for the right environment, for the building space or your solution space that needs to be covered. It handles the device management, the cloud connectivity, the credential management, and the data logging capture. And then the third and final component to the solution is the Dome Sentry. Again, the Dome Sentry deployed with the Dome Edge Gateway, and there could be 2 Dome Sentries or 100 or more Dome Sentries, depending on your environment, stops cyber attacks. It works with already installed devices for a 100% NIST Zero Trust framework. There is zero touch onboarding for ease of deployment, and it installs in under 45 seconds. So again, this is not rocket science. This truly is an easy to deploy, easy to install way to stop cyber attacks for your organization and your assets. This is what the Dome Sentry does. It stands watch. And this, the Dome Sentry, combined with the Interface Edge Gateway and the dashboard, are all available as a solution from our partners at Arrow. And we can enable this to be deployed very quickly at scale, depending on your needs. In summary, think of the Dome cybersecurity solution as able to provide that OT device and networks that are increasingly at risk, full protection. The existing tools provide monitoring and alerts, but they do not stop the attacks. So while they can be very helpful and beneficial, the Dome solution with Advantech, based on the Intel technology available through our partners at Arrow, really provides that device level protection. It protects the data on OT networks. And again, think of this as how can I deploy and protect as fast and efficiently and as low cost as possible my assets. That zero touch onboarding delivers immediate protection without having to pull in a whole team of IT or cyber experts. And it works with any industrial Ethernet protocol. We really hope that you will consider Veridify and Advantech your partners in fighting cyber crime. Thank you so much for attending today. You can scan the QR code here for more information about the Dome Intel IoT solution. And you can get in touch with Lewis or myself. Our contact information is included. Thank you so much, David. We'd love to open it up for questions and hand it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Carolyn and Lewis. And just before we do get started with the question and answer session, I just want to take a quick second to remind our viewers that if you have a question for either Carolyn or Lewis and you haven't submitted it yet, now is the time to do so. But we have already received a couple of questions, so we'll go ahead and start with those. And this one is asking, what are the most common cybersecurity implementation challenges that you've seen when it comes to industrial networks? And this one wasn't specified for either Carolyn or Lewis, so I will let you determine who wants to handle it, or both of you.
There are a lot of challenges, and people always think of the technology challenges, but we think that even just getting the resources or the ability to identify the issues for protecting the network are a challenge, which was one of the design goals of what we built, was that we could work independently with the facilities manager, with the plant manager or building manager without requiring IT staff, but at the same time have a sophisticated enough solution that when the CISO and the full IT staff were available, we could not only address their issues, but provide them with the tools. But that really is an issue because a lot of the tools and platforms are good, but the resources that they take are so significant and the topic so broad that usually it's a barrier just to getting going in a project.
Okay. And this other question we got is kind of a good follow-on to that one, where you're discussing the main implementation challenges. This one's asking about specifically securing an operations technology network or device, and they're asking what some of the top options are for doing that.
So there are a couple of options available, and as we alluded to in our presentation today, there are a lot of great tools in the IT world that can be applied to the OT market space. But unfortunately, many of them, or not unfortunately, and again, depending what you need, they're network-based tools. Some of these tools have some very powerful capabilities that reside in the cloud, and I should add that the Advantech Dome solution does not require a cloud connection to secure your network. So it's designed to support not only federal and DoD operations where they can never be connected to the cloud, but possibly industrial sites that may also have those issues. So assuming that you can have connectivity, there are some very good monitoring solutions. There are some very good discovery solutions, so you can figure out what is on your network, which is important, certainly. There are good alert solutions. Unfortunately, some of them are too good because we've come to the point now of having a term alert fatigue. So many alerts coming, which could be a nation state attacking your system, or a vendor who didn't tell you they were going to be on the network today adding a device or doing maintenance. So again, a wide range of tools for visibility, for monitoring and alerts. And again, we're adding an arrow to this quiver in a device level solution so you can focus on individual devices to control and protect them. So we think they're all valid, everything from VPN and malware and firewalls to the device level protection from Advantech and Dome.
All right, thanks for clarifying that, Lewis. We got another question, and this is a kind of an interesting take on it since so much of the discussion was focused on the convergence of IT and OT systems. This viewer is asking, what are some of the things that you see are lacking in OT systems that are often taken for granted in the IT systems world?
I think at a high level, there are a couple of critical technical requirements now that these systems are connected, and they really do need the protection that we take for granted, even all the way down to our tablets and smartphones. I think that the idea of authentication at the device level, knowing that it's your device, not only when it's installed, but when it's operating day to day, hour to hour in your facility or plant is important. I think that the idea of protecting data. OT networks typically have no protection. They typically had relied on something called being air gapped. And again, many of the audience know immediately what that is. But as we've seen in today's world, there probably is almost no such thing as an air gap system based on some of the attacks we've seen overseas in the Middle East and elsewhere. I do think that protecting data both at rest from the system, what it generates, and the data in transit, again, much like you would expect in the IT world, are important characteristics that you don't see, that we do believe should become part of or be introduced to OT platforms and devices as the world moves forward.
Okay, thank you, Louis. This other question here that we've gotten in is a little more specific than the more general questions that have come in. This one is asking, which specific security standards do you see applying to the OT environment specifically, and how do you see DOME addressing them?
Thank you, David. That question probably is another webinar unto itself.
I'm sure.
So yeah. It's interesting, and what is exciting certainly in different spaces are alliances of vendors and users have gotten together to try and move this along. So first of all, as IT systems have come over into the OT world to protect them, so have standards. So certainly standards like ISO 62443, which is an industrial standard on how to securely implement systems, is one that's being applied broadly and it's a 4-level standard. So if somebody says that they are certified, of course, ask what level they're certified to. ISO also has 27001 and a wide range of others. There's a lot of good guidance from NIST, and it's important to distinguish here that the NIST publishes on a regular basis a wide range of documents like 800-53, which again gives you guidance on implementation for infrastructure in industrial space, but it's actually not a standard. It's guidance on what to comply to. So people can tell you they comply to it, but nobody is certified to it. So I think these are all important. And again, in an example in the building space, the Building Cybersecurity Organization is trying to do a blend of these standards to try and protect or at least give people an idea of how secure they are, sort of a grade. DOME is developed along any applicable NIST standard for the industry that is available today. So we mostly focused on NIST for our security protocols, although we will add a future-proof concept shortly as those standards emerge. We do look to 62443, similar to another ISO standard in the automotive sector. We've achieved ISO 262. So again, wherever possible, we've tried to ensure that DOME either is certified or can be certified as needed.
Okay. And in this one, we've got another question that just came in is referencing a specific point made in the presentation, and it's asking what you meant by the term future-proof and why you think it means more to the OT world.
Great question. And again, probably another webinar. So some of the users or some of the listeners might be familiar with the term post-quantum. There's recently been competition at NIST addressing the post-quantum world. And what that simply means for today's discussion is that quantum computers, which were white papers in the 80s, now actually exist. And the reason we're talking about them is because they actually manage and compute differently. They're not replacing today's computers, but they're giving a different paradigm of computation. And that paradigm is going to allow known algorithms that have already been constructed, to break the security technology we currently use day to day in our financial systems, buying things from websites, or securing corporate information. Nobody knows exactly when that will be, but it's probably in the 3 to 5 year, maybe a little further out time frame. So that means in order to prepare for that, we need to be looking at primitives, what are referred to as primitives, or methods that are quantum resistant. We've already done that. We've actually developed a range of tools and applications for authenticating and protecting data in a post-quantum world. And those are things that we're applying to some of the platforms and devices with our partner Advantech. Why is that important? Because one of the first points we made is legacy infrastructure. There are systems running in the public sector today, in buildings, transit, or industrial, that have been installed for decades. So it's highly likely, even though we can't project exactly when the first quantum computer will run Shor or Grover's algorithm and break our current systems, it's likely it could happen with some of the devices that we may start to protect today with Dome. So we want to be ready, and that's why we say we're future-proof, even though we do deliver systems based on NIST's current standards as we speak.
Okay, thanks, Louis. And it looks like we've got time for one more question, and this one might be relevant to both of you. I'm not sure. I will let you determine that. It's, and this is not a surprising question considering so many options that are out there now addressing industrial cybersecurity. And the question from this viewer is asking, what do you bring to cybersecurity that's different from what else is available in the marketplace?
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm happy to chime in first, and then I'll hand it over to Louis for any additional comments on this one. I think for me, the main thing is it's two. It's the simplicity of the deployment, right? Again, going back to how do I secure my assets in one installation very easily without going out and bringing in all of these IT experts. So it's the efficiency, it's the ease of the deployment, and then what it does is number two, and that is it stops the attack. Again, the Dome solution by Veridify with Advantech is not a monitoring solution. It truly is that stop the attack. So those are the two things that I see as the big difference in other solutions that are out there in the industry, and where we really can help those customers, those partners who are really trying to solve these challenges. Louis, anything else to add that I might have missed as I oversimplify things sometimes?
No, that's great, Carolyn. As she said, we've taken decades of experience in cybersecurity, in cryptographic protocols, and packaged it so you can go to Advantech, our distribution partner, Arrow, and many of you who are not experts now can buy these systems and simply by installing them, get the latest and greatest in protection. And I think that's a difference, and not necessarily better or worse, but a difference from the network view of trying to protect a very large area, knowing that any breach anywhere potentially brings the system down. So we've got a very simple and powerful device level solution, and I think that is unique in the market.
Okay, well, thank you both for joining me for this webinar, Carolyn and Louis. And thanks, of course, to all of our viewers. And if we didn't get a chance to answer your question today, you will receive a response via email. So thank you again for joining us.